So, hey guys, and thank you guys for joining for another Speakeasy interview on the Speakeasy podcast. I am your host, Altavis Pelzer. I am the voice coach, not a voice coach, but the voice coach, professional speaker, certified life coach, and Amazon bestselling author. And I am excited. You guys know, I always get excited when I go and do an interview. Why? Because I'm me. Partially because I'm silly, but whatever works, right? But I love talking to people from different genres of writing, from different perspectives of writing and speaking. And you know that here on Speakeasy, we talk about the behind the scenes of what it is to be the speaker or the author. Now, today, we have a treat because today's guest is not only an author, she's also a publisher. So she has her own publishing company. And the publishing company is called Magnolia Babies Publishing. As you can see, the way I just smiled and grinned like that, I thought that was the cutest name ever. I love that name. And she'll give you a little snippet about how she came up with that particular name. But she is the author of When Honeysuckles Fall and 8 Moments. Carmen is the owner of Magnolia Babies Publishing. She is originally from Jackson, Mississippi, and currently lives in Miami, Florida. Yes. As I currently am looking outside, it's like 10 degrees. Yes. Her passion for writing pushes her to strive for new heights as she longs to make her mark on the world. So I want to say hello, Carmen. How are you?
Hi.
I am super excited to have you on today, Carmen. And I want to start off with, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. I wanted to start off with, that perspective, because we talked about, it's one perspective when you're the author, it's a whole other perspective when you are the publisher. And so what has been a major difference between the two for you?
Well, when you're the publisher, when you're an author, first of all, it's all about writing the book, right? So you want to make sure you get it out there. You want to get everything out there that you're trying to say. But when you start publishing, you start thinking about it in a completely different light. You think about your brand, you think about marketing, you think about editing, even at that point, that's when you start thinking about awards and sending off, for that. So you want to make sure everything is perfect. Your book covers are the way they need to be and designed properly. It's a lot that goes into publishing. It's a lot that goes into marketing that you don't think about when you're just writing a book.
Definitely. And you just made a huge statement right there because woo-wee, these book covers, and a lot of times when people think about writing the book and making the book cover, we think in our mind that it's just going to be, I'm going to put something amazing on the cover. I'm going to put this pretty picture and everybody's going to buy my book. What do we, we always say, don't judge a book by its cover, but reality.
Yes. With my latest book, what I did was I got 3 different book covers designed, and I asked my readers to vote on the book cover that they liked the best based on the description that I gave them. And I was kind of surprised because the book cover that I originally thought they would have chosen wasn't what they chose. So you definitely have to think about your readers and what they want to see when it comes to your book cover. It's not always what you have in your mind.
Awesome. So I know that you said that you have 2 books. Now, when it comes to your readers, were they readers that were a part of your community or part of your tribe before you published the first book, or did they kind of come after you published the first book?
They came after. A lot of them came after. Initially, you start marketing and you market to your friends and your family. But most of my readers are people that I just met, out and about. I did a few trade shows and I just had my book. And the very first show that I had 50 copies and I sold all of them. And I was like, oh, okay, and then from there, I guess, people like to be able to connect with you. That's one of the biggest things about being an author, connecting with your readers. So I'm excited about my book. So I'm talking to you about it. I'm talking to you about it with excitement. I'm able to explain it to you and answer your questions. And because of that, I was able to develop a readership that I really I'm very grateful to have. I'll say that.
Definitely. I love it. And that's been a huge reason why we're so active on social media is because you have the opportunity to be right in front of your readers. I know that literally some of the best platforms, I'll say in my mind,
Yes.
some of the best platforms for authors right now, I can say the top 4 are, even though Twitter has kind of dwindled, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram.
And I have all 4.
There you go.
Yeah. And Tumblr used to be good for authors as well. I have a Tumblr account, but I don't think as many people read Tumblr, like they used to, because it's just a blog. So now it's about having your website, which I even have a website. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I have all of it.
Yes, indeed. So that engagement is definitely always important. And so when we think about your first book, what was the inspiration for you to write the first book? And what was one of the things that you struggled with when it came to writing your first book?
I'm glad you asked that. So I've been writing since I was a little girl. I started out doing poetry, actually. And I said, I want to write a book. And I started writing one back in 04, 05. I got 9 chapters in. And I was like, and I was letting people read it, because I wanted to get feedback. And everybody was like, oh, I can't wait until the end. And then life happened and I just stopped. So I said, I have to finish this book. So I was determined to finish the book. And then I got laid off from my job. And I said, you know what? I had been praying about it. And I said, you know what? This was it. This was my sign. So I wrote the book. I started writing it. And then I was, kind of down. And I told my mom, hey, I'm publishing this book in the summer of last year. So my mom took out an ad for the book in her they had a class reunion. She took out an ad in her class reunion booklet. So I was like, oh my God, I have to get this book because my mom has done this. So I just started writing. And the book that I started with is not the book that I ended up with, because what I ended up with is a collection of short stories, and each of the characters they all have instances that happen to them that actually happened to me. But the last story is the one that's the most like my life, and it was the hardest to write. Because when you go back and you begin to reflect on who you are and things that you want to say and things you want to reveal and don't want to reveal, it takes a little, right, you get it? It takes a little bit. But I felt like it was really, really important for me to write this story, because it not only allows people to see a part of me that they've not seen, it addresses issues that people don't always address. So I talk about domestic violence. I talk about sexual abuse. I talk about, relationships gone wrong. Those are all of the things that have happened in my life or to people who are close to me. And I thought it was time to just kind of put it out there.
And oh my goodness, you just hit the nail on the head. And when it comes to the writing process, something that I've always told people is that it's a great feeling to want to write something and have, start doing the process. It's not so great of a feeling when you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears on the page, and you got to be transparent and you got to be real. And whatever emotion that you felt in that moment, it starts to bubble up and all this stuff is coming. And you're just like, what is this? This is not it's supposed to be just me putting words on paper, but it's not that simple. There is definitely a process. And a lot of times because my first book was It's Okay to Cry. I struggled with even the title because I was like, who wants to buy a book that's called It's Okay to Cry? What is that? What?
I think that's a great title.
And people were like, no, I love the title after the fact. But in the midst of it, you're writing all these things out. You're putting all of this stuff on paper, and you really have to struggle with, is this something I really want to put out there? Mm-hmm. I don't want to tell everybody everything I've been through. I don't want to have them thinking that, no, I don't want to do that. But it was in that transparency. It was in me putting that information out there that literally it changed everything. It changed everything because I've had so many people go, thank you for being transparent. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you, because that opened up a conversation. I even had someone say to me, it opened up a conversation between me and my daughter. Because I bought her a copy and I kind of thought something had happened to her as a child, but I didn't know. And I didn't know how to bring up the conversation.
Yeah.
So we kind of open up doors.
I have had people tell me that when Honeysuckles Fall helped them, because it helped them explore, especially, it's 3 stories. So the second story is the one that we'll get into that. But the second story explains a young lady who has a bad relationship with her mother. But it also touches on police brutality as well. And I've had a lot of people tell me that could relate to that story. So that's why I came up with 8 moments, because it's a follow-up to that story. And it talks about that relationship with this mother and daughter. And, I have a wonderful relationship with my mother. Never have we ever had a period where we've fallen out for anything. So for people to come to me and say, oh, I've had a horrible relationship with my mother, I couldn't understand it because I'm like, hey, I have a great relationship with my mother. But it made me explore some things, some feelings that I've had for other people in my life. And I put that in that book. And I had a young lady who let her 12-year-old daughter read it. And she said she loved it. And she was like, but my 12-year-old daughter, to read it and get something out of it as well, a whole different dynamic. She was like, you got to keep writing. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I understand, when you're writing something and it opens doors for other people to have conversations.
Yeah, it's about those conversations. So this is the question that I want to say. So when we're talking about conversations, what were some of the first conversations that you were able to have with people, after you published the book? Because I know I got some strange feedback when I published the first book. Because I revealed some things in there that people did not know about me. So the feedback was it was like you couldn't really gauge how people were going to react, but it still kind of caught me off guard, some of the responses. And so even with the second book and the third, as I continue on, it's still, I always kind of, that hold your breath moment for when you start getting those reviews in, you kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to go left or right. How did that feel for you, or what did you feel?
Well, I was nervous when I released the second book. I was very, very nervous because it's like your sophomore book. And it's almost like when people release music, their first album is so great. And then they released the second album and it's like, So I was worried about that. But I actually got really, really good feedback. I have better feedback on the second book than I did on the first book. One of my readers wrote a review for both of the books. And in the second book, he was complimentary of the details that I provided, which is something that I learned along the way from writing. With short stories, you have to be careful because you want to give enough detail, right? But not too many to turn it into 3 long novels in one book, So in the second book, where I'm actually able to just run wild with it, I was able to give more details without boring people. And that was one of the compliments that I got. You gave just enough. You gave me enough details so that I can see it in my mind, but I wasn't bored with it. I was just ready to keep reading and find out what was going on at the end. So I haven't any really strange feedback back just yet. I don't. The first book, it was just a lot of questions. People asking me, hey, did that really happen? And I tell people it's loosely based on my life. So the last story is the one that's the most like me, but I changed up some of the details. So then it was like family members saying, okay, well, who did it? Who was it? And I'm not going to reveal that. Like, hey, we've already gotten past that. I said what I needed to say. We're going to, move on. But not anything just negative yet. And hopefully I won't get anything negative. But we'll see. I'm just happy to be writing. So.
Oh my goodness. And I think that's the joy of it, is that not only can you be happy in writing, but, I always talk about, if you're an author, you're also an entrepreneur. This is a business. Mm-hmm. And there are people that do it full time. There are people that do it part time, but you get a joy because this is your business. This is what this is. Yeah. I know that for me, I said that for me, of course I'm different. Haven't noticed, but I set a goal for myself that I wanted to publish 100 books. Before I leave this earth, I want to publish 100 books. I am at book number 7. Number 8 is almost done. And that was just in the last 2 years. And so I said, okay, I know I can do it. But even with being at book number 8, you still get to some of these little same blocks. And when we think about those blocks, people think, oh no, but you've written 7 books. You've done this already 7 times. So what were some of those blocks that you had? I know we talked about some of the blocks when some of the things you went through with the first book. What were some of the blocks that you had with the second book?
What I do to try to avoid blocks, I'll write, and then when I feel like maybe I'm going a little too far left, I'll just stop. Mm-hmm. And then I'll start writing something else, or I'll start working on something else for the business. Coming up with a marketing plan or something, trying to think outside of the box. And then I go back and I start reading through old things that I've had, that I wrote before, or I'll start reading other people's books, this is the perfect time for me to have a publishing company, because I have 3 different authors under me that write 3 completely different types of books. So being able to go and read those books kind of takes my mind off of what I'm doing. And then when I go back to my book, I start reading what I've already written, and then it just comes to me like that. So if I come to a block, I just stop, because I want my books to always be the book that someone wants to read. And I don't want it to be something that, when they've read it or when they're reading it, it's something that they've read before. I always want something fresh and new. So whenever I feel like I'm getting to that point, I just stop. And then I just do something else.
That brings me to another question, because a lot of times, let's be honest, in the world that we are in, we have the 50 Shades of Grey and things of that nature, where people think that I have to go to an extreme in order for me to catch the attention of an audience. Mm-hmm. And for some instances, that is the truth. Others, not so much. But when you have authors that come to you and they're like, oh, well, maybe I should make it more gory, or maybe I should make it more this or make it more that. What's your dialogue with them when they're coming in and you're like, no, I just need you to be you, not necessarily, add all of these things because you're trying to fit, you're trying to fit on a certain level, but I need you just to be you.
Well, what I do is, I actually do like a manuscript development with my authors, mm-hmm. and we'll read through something. And if it's something where I feel like they might be doing a little too much, I'll ask them, what is it that you see in your head? write down on paper what you are actually seeing. And then I'll ask questions that will kind of guide them to writing. Like if you write something like, we walked outside. Okay, what was the temperature like outside? Was it dark? Who were you with? Is it a dangerous neighborhood? You know, those types of things. And so when I start asking questions to make them think about what they've written, then they realize it doesn't take all of that other stuff. Because in my books, I don't have any sex scenes. I have, in the first book, I have an instance where something happened, but it's not graphic. You know that something has happened, but it's not, you know, he did this, that, and it was this, and, you know, no. And even in the second book, I don't have that. And it's not because if that's what you do, I don't down it. It's just not what I do. I feel like those type of scenes need to be organic and that they need to come when they're supposed to come. So if I'm writing it and I feel like it needs to be there, I'm not going to be like, he effed me and did that. And, you know, I'm just not that person. You know, I really, really feel like it needs to be as organic as possible. And the only way that you can get that is if you tell me what you actually see when you're writing.
Wow, that is so on point, because like I said, it's, you know, you get into this, I guess when you think about the whole writing experience, again, it's always that when you see it from the outside, it's, oh, all you're doing is writing words on paper and getting paid to write words on paper. But they don't see the behind the scenes of it. They don't see it. So a lot of times you'll have some who will come up and say, I want to start this process. I want to be a part of this. And they're just like, well, 50 Shades of Grey had all this stuff in there, so I need to have all this stuff in there for me to be great. 50 Shades of Grey is not the only book that's making sales. Right. Let's just be honest. Go in, well, there's not as many bookstores now, but go in any bookstore and there's more than just 50 Shades of Grey there.
Right, exactly. And like I said, it doesn't take all of that. I know that people like to read it. There's a market for it. But there's a market for a lot of other genres as well. And I just choose not to go there, at least not right now. I don't feel like I need that right now. I'm working on my series because When Honeysuckles Fall is a series. The second book is a part of it. Yeah, so it's 3 short stories, and then each of the following books are novels that give you a background or that follow up to the story in the initial book. And so I'm trying to develop those characters and let my readers know who they are and make them fall in love with them. And I don't need that other element right now, because I need you to know who they are and why they make the decisions that they make before I can get into them having this relationship. Because everybody, I want to be realistic. Everybody is not in a loving relationship.
True.
I'll be honest, everybody is not happy-go-lucky. Everybody doesn't have this great job. Everybody is not just, super rich. So I feel like if you're realistic and you're organic, then your readers will appreciate that. And that's what I want to give them.
Definitely. I can so understand that. It's just, it's once you put it out there. So when it comes to you, so far you've written 2 books. I'm sure that you've published many more for other authors, because you said that you have 3 authors underneath you. Where do you see, what is your long-term goal? So for me, I say, I want to write 100 books. I want to be able to write and publish 100 books. Can I do it? Yes. Just like you said, a lot of times as a writer, you started writing well before you got to this point. Right. And so I literally go through and I have poetry, I have stories, I have story ideas. Some of them are like completely developed outlines. I just got to go in and put in details. What is your extreme goal? Where do you see your publishing company going? Where's that goal? And then you as a published author, what's your personal goal?
So my personal goal is I want one of my books at least to be a movie. That's my goal. I also want to write in more than one genre. So actually, I have a book that's coming out in January, which is the third book in the When Honeysuckles Fall series. I have a self-help book that I plan on releasing in March. And then I have a children's book series that I'm working on. So I want to be able to be a multi-talented author in different genres. So that, if you see me, you know who I am, but you may not have read all of my books, And then for my publishing company, I just want to publish quality books that people enjoy and that they will continue to read and pass on for years to come. I want to help authors realize their dreams and develop them like I've been developed. I have people in my life who really helped contribute to who I am. I have an 8th grade, my teacher from 8th grade, my English teacher, I still speak with her on a weekly basis almost. I love her to death. And so I'll call her and I'll just say, hey, I'm just calling to check on you, see how you're doing. And, I've sent her copies of my books and she's, keeping them. So it's like she's, one of my readers as well. And if I need advice, I can get it from her. I think I have a couple of my English teachers that I keep up with. So, and my mom was a school teacher. So, I have her as a guide, and I may send her something and she'll say, no, I don't like that. Or, yeah, that's great, So I just want to build a fan base of readers who really, truly love and appreciate what I'm offering and just want to pass my books down generations to come.
Definitely. And I know that, okay, so you said mom has a very big piece in your influence because you said that mom was a teacher. Now, let's talk about this because we all know that when mom is in an area that we're trying to be in, a lot of times they are a lot harder on us because of us doing, X, Y, and Z. So as a writer, was she a lot harder on you when it came to you doing stuff at home as opposed to her not being if she was not a teacher, I guess would be the question. I don't know if I phrased it right.
No, actually, I'll tell you an instance when my sister and I are 7 years apart. And I remember a time where I don't even remember how old I was. I could have maybe like 5 or 6. And my sister was doing some homework or whatever. And she was doing her, vocabulary. And she asked my mom, she's like, what is this word? And I walked over to her. And I was like, oh, that's such and such. And I just walked off. And I remember that because everybody was shocked and surprised. But my parents, it's funny, I tell everybody this. My parents they weren't hard on us, like, you need to go do your homework, because we just did it. We just knew we had to. My father has a degree in education as well. So, so we had unabridged dictionaries in the house. So if I said, Mom, what's the definition or what does whatever mean, then she would say, go look it up. Well, it's different looking it up. A lot of people don't know, but it's different looking something up in an unabridged dictionary as opposed to just a regular dictionary. So by the time you find out the definition for whatever, you've looked up the definition for 10 other words because you don't know what the other words meant, So I had a vocabulary out of this world at a younger age because I had no choice. So I think that helped contribute to who I am today. It wasn't that my mother was hard on me or anything, like she didn't have to be, because they laid a foundation very early in life for us without having to be hard on us. It was just like, okay, well, if you want to know, go look it up.
I think that's a great response from parents.
Mm-hmm.
You find right now we are in the technology age. You can find out so much. You can find out everything and anything between Google and YouTube and Pinterest. You can find out everything.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Yeah, you have to be careful now.
I might
not want them to see everything. Tell them to go look something up, and they come back with something you weren't ready for.
Exactly, with all the code words and things going on.
Right.
Listen, I am a firm believer. I know right now we have the whole Me Too thing going on.
Right.
And, everybody's talking about, sexual harassment in Hollywood. But there's other things that are going on when it comes to sex trafficking, when it comes to abuse, when it comes to molestation and rape. There's so many things, like literally even domestic violence. There's so many things going on that weren't necessarily talked about. Now we see some of these things coming out, and they're coming out a lot of times in the books because people don't always want to be able to be verbal and talk about what they've been through, but they can write it out.
Right.
And I found that for me as a writer, it was always easier for me to write about it than to talk about it. That turned into not so good of a habit to have later in life.
Yeah.
It's better to be able to talk about it as well. But that was always my go-to. That was my comfort zone, was being able to write things out. So when we see everything that's going on, and like I said, everybody being able to be verbal now and saying #MeToo and talking about what it is that they've gone through, we still have a large number of people that feel as though they don't have a voice. They can't say anything. They're still stuck in a situation, or it's too fresh, or they don't know what that person will say. They don't know how that person will feel. And so they keep quiet. One of the things that I love about poetry especially is that it allows your feelings to come out. And instead of you holding everything in, you're allowing it to come out and flow freely and not have it all bottled up, because we know what happens when we bottle it up.
Yeah.
You explode.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I am who I am today, because I had poetry to be able to release a lot of those feelings, that frustration that I had bottled up. Had I not had that, I believe I would be a completely different person today. I did a symposium with my book with a fellow author, and her name is Chastity Harris, and she wrote, gosh, I can't think of it right now. It's about her father. But in our discussion, we were talking about the difference between when you're sexually abused, how it affects you. You can go one way or the other. You can either be approved, or you can be promiscuous. And, I tend to be a little more prudish. And she was telling me she tends to be a little more on she at one point was on the promiscuous side. And it's like you start seeing how things affect other people because they didn't have the same outlets that you had. And I wonder, had I not had that, would I have been a different way? Because I think we all are influenced by not just our outlets, but by our experiences and the people around us. And I remember when I was a little girl, my parents would be talking and I wasn't supposed to be listening. And, they'll say something like, oh, she's trying to act like, she's this goody two shoes now. But I remember her back in high school, and I was like, I never want to be that person. I never want anybody to come back and say they remember something I did in high school. Like, I'm good. So I was like, I want to be a good girl, because I don't want that. I don't want your reputation follows you, and I need a good reputation. I don't want anybody calling me something that, I'm 30, 40 years away from what I was, and you still remember something I did in high school.
Exactly. And it's that's funny, because I know for me, writing was what got me through my early childhood years until about middle school. Middle school was like I broke off from writing, and I wasn't writing as much. And then by the time I got to high school, I was hardly writing at all. And so, it definitely, during the time that I was able to write, I wasn't going through as much as I was, during that time by the time I got to high school, it was like, I was the other end of the spectrum, and I was trying to make my way back to the safe zone. I was trying to make it back to the safe zone. Late teens, early 20s, trying my best to make it back to the safe zone. I found it back. I found my way back, y'all. That's y'all can put up the hand clap emoji for that one, because I made my way back to the safe zone. And luckily, I can just say that I can be honest and say this, and I'm thankful that we didn't have camera phones. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I can be transparent. I can be real. Let's just be honest. I'm thankful that we didn't have camera phones. We got pictures, but that's not the same. So thankfully I made it back to the other side. But even now with writing, and for me personally, I am a victor over molestation, as well as the mother of 2 teen girls who are victors over molestation. And so that's something that I've kind of like pushed off to them, that yeah, no, it's okay to write it out. It's poetry. I love poetry. I love the arts in general. And I think any version of the arts is a great way of expression and taking you kind of out of that mindset of what you've been through. And so that's, I love that that's the route that they have taken, but not everybody has that support.
Yeah.
And I found that.
I'm a victor too. And that's why that story was the hardest one to write. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of with you on that. You know, if it wasn't for writing, I don't know where I would be. And it's not that I didn't have people that were there. You know, I was afraid. You know, who you would listen to me, of course. But do I really want to share that information with you? No, I can't do that right now. I'm afraid. And I was a young child. I'm pretty sure you were as well. Mm-hmm. And I was threatened. So, of course, I don't want anything to happen to my mom, my dad, you know.
Exactly. So, yeah.
I think that those are conversations we definitely need to start having with people, especially children, because they need to know. And I have a friend. I tell people this all the time. I have a friend. And whenever I don't have any children of my own. So I adopt everybody else's kids. And so when she would send her children off somewhere, it didn't matter where they went, cousin, sister, mama, aunt, whatever. When they came back, her first question was, has anybody done anything that they should not have done? Did anybody touch your private parts? You know, she had those conversations with them. Did they make you uncomfortable? And I always applauded her for that, because no matter what, you listen to your children, you pay attention to your children, and you let them know it's not okay. And I'm going to be here, and nobody's going to do anything to mama's going to take care of it. And so should I ever have any children, that is definitely something that I will take away from that friendship, because I want my children to always know that they will be protected and nobody's going to do anything to me. You tell me what's going on. Yeah,
that conversation. It's funny because it was a conversation, and I say this when I've done a couple interviews over the last few weeks that we recorded and on different podcasts, and it's always been, you know, the conversation that changed everything, because it was because of a conversation that I found. It was because of me being that mother that when they came back, I would say, "How was your weekend?" That I was able to find out, or else I never would have possibly known. Right. It was because of that conversation, and then it was because of the conversation with my oldest daughter about trust that I actually kind of blurted it out that I had been molested as well, because I hadn't told anybody. And that just happened in 2015, so I was 35. So I had not told anyone, and that conversation went and opened up a whole new doorway, because later on she told me that was her most proud moment of me. And that was, I had already, you know, become a certified life coach. I had published books. I had been traveling. And she said that was the most proud moment. And so if me having that conversation with a teenage girl, you know, allows her to feel like she's not alone, it allows her to feel like, you know, that sigh of relief, then what can that conversation be with another woman? How can that change another woman's life? Mm-hmm. And so it set me on a path that I was like, okay, well, if I got to be transparent about it, I'm going to be transparent about it. It's not always going to sound pretty. It's not always going to be pretty, but if every time I open my mouth, if that's a seed that's sown, if the harvest is somebody being able to be delivered or healed or have their own sense of victory, I'm with it. I'm with it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I have had those conversations. I didn't tell my mother. I'll tell you how I told my mom. I didn't tell her until I was in my 20s. And I was really, really heavy in the poetry scene in Mississippi and in Texas, since I lived in Texas too. And I'll travel now. I'll get up and go. So I invited her to a poetry reading, and I did the poem. And so I didn't have to tell her that it was real. You know, it was just that mother's intuition. She just knew. And so it opened up a conversation for us, and it hurt her. She was hurt because she was very sad that I had not told her prior to. But like I said, my mother and I are very close. It created a different type of bond for us. So it's like, my mom is my best friend. I can tell her anything, even those uncomfortable conversations. Now, I'm not going to curse in front of my mom. We're not going to do that. I don't care how old I am. But I will tell her things that I would not have told her when I was younger. Because, you know, I think another thing that people don't understand is you can't be your child's friend when they're children. You don't become your child's friend until they are adults, because you have to set a foundation, lay a foundation for those children, and let them know you are the parent. You're going to be there for them, and you're going to protect them. And then you transition into the friendship once they're older and they're ready to have their own kids. And so my mother and I had that type of relationship where we transitioned to friendship. And now we have like the best friendship. Because if I don't talk to her, I'm calling her like, what's wrong with you? I haven't talked to you today. She called me the other day and was like, I just want you to know my telephone number, because clearly you forgot it. You didn't call me today.
Yes. And see, it was funny because that's the complete opposite of why I never told my mom. And so my mother passed away never knowing. She passed away in 2011. And she passed away never knowing, because I felt it happened during a time when I wasn't living with her. And so I felt like even as a young child, it was always me and my mom against the world. You know, I was living with someone else while she was finishing up her master's degree. And, you know, she was getting her degree in fashion, and she was doing things to support us. And then, you know, I came back and lived with her, and I never felt like I could tell her that, because I didn't want her to be hurt. I didn't want her to feel like it was her fault or anything like that. So I never told her. And I had people who were like, when the first book came out, It's Okay to Cry, people were just like, you waited how long to say something? And it was just like, I had to deal with it how I had to deal with it.
So let me ask you a question. Have you had an opportunity to confront the person that violated you?
Never saw him again, ever.
I actually got that opportunity. Wow. And it wasn't a face-to-face. He actually sent me a message on Facebook, and I was able to say everything that I needed to say, and ask him never to reach out to me again. And I think that helped me a lot. I really do. That was during that time when I was writing. It came perfect opportunity, because it was around that time when I was writing my story. So it really helped me release some things. And I think that maybe this is always something that I tell people: if you've been a victim, or if you have been victimized, I'll say that, because we're not victims anymore. We've overcome it. The best thing to do is confront that person, even if you're confronting them on paper. Write it down. Say everything to them that you want to say, everything to them that you think you should have said, and then let it go.
And that was it. That was powerful, because I was just like, for me, I was that was the opposite end. I literally went from like one end to the other end, and then kind of found my way into the middle now. But I've been at both ends of the spectrum. And so for me, that was something that I didn't want for my daughters. I wanted to keep that, that line of communication. Now they haven't had a conversation with their abuser since it was found out. But he pleaded guilty. They never had to, even though we had to do the whole court school and everything, they never had to get on stand. So that was a blessing. And it's like, I know that part is coming. Like, I know, because they're now teenagers. My girls are now 13 and 15. And so they're now teenagers. And so I know we've had the conversation prior to saying, okay, well, would you want to? Yeah, I think I do want to talk. Okay, well, would you want to do it face to face? How would you want to have that happen? So it's in the works, because I'm thinking that it should be something that's done at least before they go to college.
Definitely, when they go to college, they really need to have a strong foundation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
I'll just say I did not do that before I went to college, and I've always been that person. I have some people who call me Mother Goose, because I'm always the one who tries to help everybody. I'm always,
Mm-hmm.
What do you need? Or if we go out, I'm not going to drink because everybody's going to drink, so I need to be there to make sure everybody's okay. I'm good. And it's because of what I've gone through. And I ended up trying to help one of my friends, and I was raped. And so that kind of set me back. Life happens. It set me back. And I wish I had talked about it before I left, because I went from small town Mississippi to Miami. I went to the University of Miami. I was in a whole another world, and so I really wish I had those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely it. So those who are joining in, thank you guys so much for joining in this conversation. I know you're you're in deep right now, right? I know you guys are watching and you're in deep right now, but we do have to start wrapping it up. So I want to let Carmen know where you can find her at. I want her to let y'all know where you can find her at, how you can get in contact with her. If you are ready to publish that book, definitely reach out. Even if it's just to talk and say, can I do a consultation to say if this is something that I'm really ready to do? Because a lot of times we don't have that talk beforehand, so we don't know. We can't really gauge the time it's going to take, the energy, the money, the finances, everything that's going to be needed to make this a success. So you definitely want to be able to reach out to someone who has not only had success with doing her own, but also had success in doing books for other people as well. It gives you like that two side of the coin thought process. So Carmen, how can they find you? Where can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
I'm everywhere. You can find me on Facebook. I'm at Carmen Hendricks Writer. I also have a Facebook page for my publishing company, Magnolia Babies Publishing. You can find me at carmenhendricks.com. You can find me at magnoliababiespublishing.com. And if you'd like to reach out to me, my email address is carmen@carmenhendricks.com. I do have consultations, and I'm offering free 30-minute consultations for people because, writing a book is hard. You need to know the steps. I'm not going to charge you initially. I want to know where you are, what your goals are, and then kind of give you some background before we go into manuscript development and editing and those types of things. So you can go to carmenhendricks.com and book me for a free consultation. I'll be happy to talk with you, and we can just have some general conversations about what you want, where you're going, and what you need to do, and I'll be happy to help you.
Great. And I thank you so much for agreeing to be on with me today, Carmen. I love the conversation. It was an
Thanks
amazing
for having me. I actually forgot that we were going to be on Facebook Live until you said you know how you might not say something. No, I'm just playing. Seriously, I'm an open book. So I really have enjoyed this. I appreciate everything that we talked about today.
And that's the thing about it, is that transparency is always necessary. You never know. Mm-hmm. Again, you may open up the eyes for somebody to be able to have that conversation, to be able to write that story and get it out there. Hey, that's what this is all about. For those who are joining us, if you're catching this on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, by all means, we want to hear what you thought about this episode. Also, we want to thank Carmen for being our amazing guest today. Those of you who are looking to have your interview done here on the Speak Easy podcast, it's bit.ly/talk2out2beast. No, that's a consultation. bit.ly/speak easy podcast. Let's do that right. That's bit.ly/speak easy podcast for you to be on the podcast. And right now we're filling up to, I think I just started seeing some dates rolling for January. So you definitely want to get in before they roll and get to the point where they're closed out, and now we're going to be in February. Guys, you definitely want to take advantage of the opportunity. Speakers and authors, I love talking to you all. Don't forget, catch the replays, share it out. We greatly appreciate you. And we love you guys. Don't forget to press it out.